we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
They claimed that their eugenics program was being run from the United States. The Nazis were rightly admonished for war crimes, but not Thomas Watson. He went on to create the IBM World Trade Corporation and passed IBM on to his son. His granddaughter ended up marrying Margaret Sanger's grandson. Bill Gates' father worked on the board for Planned Parenthood, and his mother worked on the corporate board for IBM, who Bill partnered with to create Microsoft.
Nazi scientists, some of them tied to war crimes including horrific concentration camp experiments, brought to the U.S. in a secret program to advance American security interests during the Cold War. It sounds like the plot of a film drama, but it actually happened, and on a large scale. The story is told in the new book, Operation Paperclip. Author and journalist Annie Jacobsen joins us now. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
So these were top scientists in the German war effort, sought out by the U.S. military as the war was coming to an end.
That's right. These were Hitler's top weapons makers, and Operation Paperclip became a classified military program to bring them to the United States. It also had a public face, so there was, on the one hand, the truth about the program kept secret, and on the other hand, the idea that we'll tell the public that these are the good Germans.
There were many scientists that were working with Germany at the end of World War II, developing things like the V2. And when the war was over, Russians and Americans basically divvy up the scientists. So the scientists that America wanted to bring, they put a paperclip on their folder, and that marked them. From then on out, it was called Operation Paperclip, and they were the paperclip scientists.
Prescott was born into privilege and became extremely influential in business, intelligence, and politics. He helped establish the CIA out of the Army's Office of Strategic Services with the Dulles brothers, and served as a senator in the state of Connecticut. However, during his time serving as one of the directors of Union Banking Corporation, he was doing business with Nazis.
The Bushes have been sort of at the heart of the military-industrial complex since its very beginning, and that Prescott was involved in a firm that actually fronted for Nazi firms in America.
In fact, Union Banking and its subsidiaries were seized by the United States government in October of 1942 under the Trading with the Enemy Act. After the war, the assets were returned, a few fines were paid, and it was swept under the rug of forgotten history. These Nazi ties should not be all that shocking, seeing as it has been declassified that the Office of Strategic Services recruited Nazis into its ranks through Project Paperclip in August of 1945.
Fascism in the America of the 1930s, as document investigates the White House coup.
Most of these groups were continuing some of the themes of the Ku Klux Klan, and these groups often carried out vigilante violence against Catholic workers, black workers in some of the factories in the North. These groups had great aspirations to become much larger than they were. Some of them had aspirations to imitate what had happened in Italy and was happening in Germany.
It's into this world that the plot to overthrow FDR was born. But who was going to lead it, and how did they think they'd get away with it? On the 21st of November 1934, the following rather chilling article appeared in the New York Times. It concerns the discovery of a planned coup that could have altered the course of American history. Yet today, hardly anyone knows anything about it. A shipping company called Hamburg America Line was accused of providing free passage to Germany to American journalists willing to write favorable copy on Hitler's rise to power. The company is also alleged to have brought Nazi spies and pro-fascist sympathizers into America. John Buchanan has studied this later section of the report and has discovered that one of the company's managers came from a very famous family.
The thing that surprised me most was to discover in the documents that this company, Hamburg America Lines, had in fact been managed on the U.S. side at the executive level by Prescott Bush as part of a web of Nazi business interests that were all seized in late 1942 under the Trading with the Enemy Act by the U.S. Congress.
Of course, at the time, it was perfectly legal to have dealings with Hitler's Germany. Prescott Bush was not called to account for this until America entered the war. Had the allegations against them been found to be true, people like Irene Dupont and banker J.P. Morgan could have faced the death sentence for treason.
A plot of Wall Street interests to overthrow President Roosevelt and establish a fascist dictatorship backed by a private army of 500,000 ex-soldiers and others, appeared before the House of Representatives Committee on Un-American Activities, which began hearings on the charges.
Fascism was seen as an example to be learned from because it seemed like a quick fix. All you needed to do was get people to shape up.
You could have had a handful of the wealthiest people in the United States found guilty of treason and sentenced to death.
The good Germans, but they were dedicated Nazis, the ones you write about. We should say there are many, 1,600 in all, right?
Yes.
You document about 21 of them, dedicated Nazis, some, as I said, involved in horrific stuff. What they did was known, right, to the people to the Americans who were seeking them out.
Certainly to the American military intelligence officers who were interviewing them. The idea that they were involved in war crimes was really necessary to be kept secret, and that's exactly what happened. And so in the book, I think I unveil a lot of the truth about this program that has remained clouded for decades.
So give us an example of one of the figures that intrigued you.
Well, I think one of the worst case scenarios was that the United States military made the decision to bring Walter Schreiber. This was Major General Dr. Walter Schreiber, the Surgeon General of the Third Reich. He wound up at a military facility in Texas.
And doing what?
Well, during the war, Dr. Schreiber had been involved in the vaccine program for the Reich, which sounds like a nice program, but it was actually a program to work on protecting German soldiers from these biological weapons that were also being manufactured. So he was involved in war crimes and concentration camps. He became a prisoner of the Soviets and then defected to the United States. We saw him as someone who we absolutely wanted here for his knowledge. So in the United States, it still remains unknown what exactly he did, only that he worked for the U.S. Air Force in Texas.
He was a wonderful man, and we extended our best wishes, and he was a very fine man.
Due to its secretive nature, Freemasonry has long been a target of conspiracy theories, in which the group is either focused on world domination or are already secretly in control of world politics. Historically, critics have suggested that the Masons have secretly plotted to create a society based on the revolutionary ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity, separation of church and state, and, in Nazi Germany, a Jewish plot for religious tolerance. Also, some conspiracy theorists have also claimed that Freemasonry is a Jewish front for world domination, or is at least controlled by the Jews for this goal. An example of this can be found in a notorious work of literature called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, an anti-Semitic text claiming to describe a Jewish plan for global domination, which is generally regarded as a forgery. The earliest document accusing Freemasonry of being involved in a conspiracy was Enthüllungen des Systems der Württemberger Politik, or Disclosure of the Systems of Cosmopolitan Politics, a work by Ernst August von Goschalsen, a Prussian official from the city of Weimar and a former Freemason. The book was authored in 1786 and predicted the revolution that would occur in France 3 years later. The book claimed there was a conspiracy of Freemasons, Illuminati, and Jesuits who were plotting an inevitable global revolution. During the 19th century, this theory was repeated by many Christian counter-revolutionaries, who saw Freemasonry as being behind every attack on the existing social system. Hundreds of such conspiracy theories have been described since the late 18th century. Generally, these theories fall into 3 distinct categories. The first is political, usually involving allegations of control of government, particularly in the United States and the United Kingdom. The second is religious, usually involving allegations of anti-Christian or satanic beliefs or practices. And the third is cultural, usually involving popular entertainment. Many conspiracy theory writers have also connected Freemasons and the Knights Templar with worship of the devil. These ideas are based on different interpretations of the doctrines of those organisations. Of the claims that Freemasonry exerts control over politics, perhaps the best known example is the New World Order theory, which suggests the emergence of a totalitarian world government. But there are others. These mainly involve aspects and agencies of the United States government. But actual events outside of the US, such as the Propaganda Due, a scandal in Italy, in which evidence exposed the Masonic Lodge intervening in local politics, are often used to lend support to claims. Theories concerning Freemasonry and religion usually insist that Freemasonry deals with the occult or supernatural. These theories have their beginnings in the Taxil hoax of 1890, in which an anti-Masonic book by French writer Marie-Joseph Gabriel Antoine Jogan Piaget, who is better known by the pen name Leo Taxil, gained much attention, although the author later revealed the book to be a hoax, intended to mock not only Freemasonry but also the Roman Catholic Church's opposition to it.
Switching gears, at least 51 people have been shot and 6 are dead in Chicago after a rash of violence in the first half of the 4th of July weekend. More than 1,700 people have been shot in the city so far this year. 310 died. That's according to data compiled by the Chicago Sun-Times. There's been another weekend of deadly gun violence in Chicago. Officials say at least 34 people were shot within a 24-hour period this weekend. 5 of those people were killed.
Could President Trump send in federal troops? What does that mean?
You know, in the late 1800s, Congress passed the Posse Comitatus Act, which people love to cite to say...
Showing off.
I know. And a lot of people say you can't send in federal troops for local law enforcement. There are some exceptions.
I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know where to begin. If you're not paying attention, if you're not out here, you need to be paying attention. You need to get out here. Because this shit is not going to get better on its own. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is only going to get worse. Fuck all this shit.